So, as per the data binding definition, we knew that it is a context of populating a control or a view with a value from a data source. We said that the data source cannot be only an entity or a table inside the database. We have different resources, and we saw the example of the links. Today, we are going to start with these blocks today. So, whatever the data source in background, we will use to populate a control or a view in the front-end interface. That is the context of the binding, whether it is a single value binding or a repeated value binding, multi-value binding. So the methodology we're going to follow in all cases, it will bind, it will populate, it will link and retrieve data, binding. It is not only a path like the other.NET role to link a front-end control to a back-end resource. But here we are going to have another value, which is the population, which is the display of value, display of content. So let's start with the first example. Let's start and let's create a first of all let's create a project, and based on that we will explain more. So Visual Studio immediately. I'm going to create a new website actually, so our project will be a web-based solution. It is based on the C#, absolutely, and it is an empty website. So, okay, I will not rename anything. Keep the same name, it's okay. I'm going to create the first interface. I'm going to name it home page. Home page. So it's a web form. I'm going to change the name to home.aspx. So I'm going to modify the default, not the extension. So home.aspx, home.aspx. I did not modify the extension. I did not modify the extension. I did not modify. So only home. Change to design view. Yes, good. Here in this interface to make the thing easy. Before actually we are not following exactly what this task number 1 is asking us, because we are going to create a database. Later on we will follow. But for now, just to bring your attention to what we saw today in the theory and to what does it mean binding generally, I'm going to tackle a very simple example, and later on we'll continue. So here I'm going to generate the menu. I'm going to generate a menu, and this menu will be actually displaying a group of links. And those links, they are external hyperlinks. I'm going to specify that. So let's dig in, and I'm going to implement the repeated value binding. So the menu, it is the bulleted list. I'm going to search for the bulleted list here. I'm going to search for the bulleted list here. Bulleted list is the one. Drag and drop. I'm going to use the bulleted list to have the menu elements. Menu number 1, menu number 2, menu number 3, and so on. I'm not going to use the data source from here. I'm not going to edit the item to add values here. No, we're going to specify the thing programmatically. We are going to use the repeated value binding. Let's do that. So the first element is the list. Here is a bulleted list. The second component is the values of the list. So as per the example we saw this morning, we saw the Google. The value is let's say it's HTTP. Let's say google.com. This is the first one. The second one, it's, let's say, the Bing, another search engine. The value, it's http bing.com. It's enough, whatever. We can add the third one. But we will have something like this. But this is not a link. If I test VM browser, we have them. They are not a link. They are simple text. Why? Because there are properties we have to control. Let's do that. I'm going to cancel what I did, and I'm going to use multi-value binding methodology. Good. We inserted the list. in any empty place, I'm going to double click to raise up the load event handler. It's inside the load, it's inside the page load. Here I'm going to declare the list of values. We are going the variable that would have the values to populate the resource. Is a variable. It's a variable, but I'm going to give the name URLs as per an example, and it has actually a list of values in between two curly braces. Good. So here in between, I'm going to define what I have to do. Actually, this one is an array. It's an array. So new, it's an array like this. So in between here, I'm going to specify the values we need. I'm going to specify a new value for the first value, which is a text heaven value, which is actually equal to, let's say, Google, and a URL to the Google. Let's say URL to the Google, which is the HTTP, let's say, or HTTPS, HTTP, whatever, www.com. Great. The second comma here, comma, first value. The second, it's a new one. But this one is for the second second value, which is, let's say, the Bing, the second search engine. I'm going to say let's say Bing, for example, and the URL for this Bing is, I'm going to say http://www.bing.com. Come on. Okay, good. Comma. Another search engine, new. Yes, here I'm going to specify the text, which is, for example, I'm going to say ABC search. It's another search engine. I'm making the thing different from the theory part, so to make you understand more. So HTTP, let's say www.abcsearch.com. Great, comma. I'm going to add a fourth. Not only three. We might do that. Yes. The first parameter is the text, which is, I'm going to say go. It's another search engine, and then after the URL for this one, if I'm correct, I'm going to say http://www.go.com. Yes, great. It's enough. So for now, I specified a variable that this is the user defined name, and it has this value. We terminate that with a semicolon here. Finish. Done. Now we declare the variable that has 4 elements. Each element is a text and the URL. Okay, a question comes here. What is this text? What is this URL? Those are 2 attributes we are going to pass where? We are going to pass to this bulleted list. The bulleted list has an attribute which is the text. We search it later, whatever. And it has another attribute which is the value, data text field and data value field. I'm going to just move to the split view in order to control it here. See here. So this bulleted list, it is in the ASP side, it is written here. I'm going to add. Now, before I add anything, I save all. So I have no error. Let me test. Right click in any empty place here, green browser. Nothing. The page is home ASPX and nothing here. No, it's empty. Nothing. There is no error. Okay, why is nothing? Because we did not link this bulleted list to the source, which is this source here. The source here. Okay. To link it, we have to specify where to write this text and how to apply this URL. Where to write this text, how to apply this URL. Where to write this text and how to apply this URL. And the fourth thing, where to display this text and how to apply this URL, and so on. So where and how. To do so, we are going to display the text inside this bulleted list, and the link is linked to this text. How to? Here inside the ASP, so when I click this bulleted list, It highlights this part. Because of this, I changed to split view. So here, inside this ASP, inside, so I'm gonna come after this ID here, after this quotation, after the quotation, I insist, after the quotation, space, I'm gonna add the text field, which is the data text field. Here it is. I choose it. Double click. Equals what? In between quotation, text. What text? This text here is the one we specified here. This is the text. Okay. Then the second part, which is not the text now, the value field. After this text field, space, data value field. This is the one. I choose it. Which is equal to what? URL, the same spelling, capital URL, the same spelling. Here it is. This is the one. The same spelling. Here it is. Okay, save. Save. I say, well, there is no, everything is saved. I come here in any empty place, right click, view in browser. Still, I cannot see anything. Still, I cannot see anything. It's empty so far. Did I make errors? No, I did not make any error, but there is something missing. Remember, we have the place, but we did not bind. We did not bind. To bind, we have to specify two attributes inside the same block load here, exactly after this semicolon here. We have to specify the source and to call the data bind. How? This dot what? The name of this, the name of, or the ID of this, bulleted list, which is this one. I'm going to copy it. This that ID here, I'm going to paste. Dot data source. Data source. Data source. Here it is. Data source equals what? Equals these URLs. So equals UR field. I choose it. Semicolon. Okay. After the data source, yes, no errors. After the data source, we call the data bind method. We do the bind now. We do the bind. So this dot, the same bulleted list, yes, dot data bind, here it is. I choose it. It's the method. So a simple parenthesis, semicolon. Stop. I finished. I'm going to save. It is not saved. I'm going to save. Now I come back here. In any empty place here, right click, view in browser. Yes. Google, Bing, ABC search, DuckDuckGo. Ha! It works very fine. I'm successful. How it come? Yes, it happens like that. So we did the binding. The text, here it is. The field, the value field, the computer recognized the URL, but everything is done after we specify the data source and we call the binding. We execute it. Okay, those are URLs. Yes, those are URLs. What does it mean? It means when I test, they have to open. I click the Google, does not open. I click the Bing, does not open. I click the ABC search, does not open. I click the DuckDuckGo, it does not open. Why? Because they are not links so far. They are not links so far. Did I miss anything? Is it error? Yes, it is. We are missing something. It's not error. We are not making any error, but still something to happen. What is it? We have to specify that this data, this bulleted list, it's a hyperlink. It's a list of hyperlinks. So after the URL, I'm going to add a display mode. A display mode to be hyperlink. I choose from the list hyperlink. Save. Save, yes, and in any empty place here, right click, view in browser. Yes, now they are in blue. See, I click, for example, the Google. This is the Google. It has opened. I come back. I click the Bing. This is the Bing. It has opened. Yes, come back. I click the ABC search. I don't know if the URL I wrote it correct or not, but it will open. It will open. Whatever the URL I specified. Give it a second. It seems to be I wrote something error, but whatever. It has opened the ABC search. Yes, URL I specified. I come back, DuckDuckGo. Yes, it opened DuckDuckGo. It is a search engine, whatever. I'm going to search for example, here, repeated value binden sharp ASP.NET. Yes, it has brought me. It is a search engine, absolutely. It works very fine. So we succeeded in doing that. We succeeded in doing that. I close and I give you a conclusion here. I close. See, even this one display mode, it has been showing the impact here in the view mode, here in design mode. It is a hyperlink. It is underlining the bulleted list, unbound name, whatever. So we inserted from the control panel, from the toolbox here, we inserted a bulleted list here. We drag and drop. This is the one. Then we added a text field and a value field and a display mode to make the links be executed. We generated inside of this bulleted list, double click, 2 clicks. Not here, not in the bulleted list, sorry, in any empty place. Yes, in any, because we need the load method, the load method, yes. Inside the load method, we generated the variable, We're giving it a name. It's user defined here, any name, but to indicate what we want. So here we choose an URLs. It is an array. And we're given new values to this array. Value number 1, comma, value number 2, comma, value number 3, comma, value number n. We may give extra values. You can do that. I can add another one. See, I'm going to add another one. I'm going to add here. It's Yahoo. And I'm going to give here yahoo.com. Yahoo.com. Yeah. So I'm going to save. I'm going to visualize. Yes, this is the Yahoo. Here it is. If I click it, yes, maktoub.yahoo.com. Yes, it's a search engine. It's another search engine. Absolutely. It works very fine. So here we are trusting the work. So after this, yep, as many values, the values they are text and whatever. Text. The text field, here is name, is the same word. And the URL is the value field. The value field, here it is. This is URL, the same spelling, U capital RL. So here also I have to type U capital RL. For example, I'm going to say something else. It will not work because it has to match. Then after defining this variable here, how many statements here? It's only one statement here, right? Because we have only one semicolon. All of those, they are values. All of those, they are values inside of this variable. So we are initializing this variable, this array. This is the variable, but would be the data source. Now, after creating this variable, we specify the source to whom? To the bulleted list. What is this? This is what we have generated. This is the bulleted list ID. Here it is. So this is the ID. But we are going to specify the data source for it. What is it? It's the same URL here, URLs we specified earlier. Then we execute the binden. We do the binden here. So what we specify, the data source we specified here, we are making the binden this level. So URLs, then data binden, URLs, then data binden, URLs, then data binden, so on. As many values we have, they would be actually binned. Any questions at this level, please? Any questions?
No.
Yeah, and so this is the outcome. This is the outcome. Great. Great. So very quickly, let me come to task number 1 here, and let me generate the database we need. And say inside the same project, I'm going to generate those 3 entities, a new database and 3 tables. I'm going to name it actually cooking or kitchen. I'm going to give it the name kitchen. as per the request here, do we have any title? No, we have already the title. So I'm going to respect and use the same name. I'm going to use the same name here. So restaurant services. I'm going to use the name restaurant services. For what? For the database. So right click here, new, add new item. So let's go to our database here. I'm going to say restaurant services. Restaurant services. Restaurant services. Yes, just add. It will create a folder. Yes, I'm going to say yes. Yes, here it comes. Here we need 3 entities as per the request. I'll start with the users. Right click on the table. So add new table. Yeah, great. Okay. And respect the same syntax, the same architecture, sorry. ID, username, password hash, salt, first name, and so on. ID, yes. First name. It's a varchar. Varchar, okay. What else? Password hash, I believe. The name, password hash, yes. Also, I'm going to use this varchar. Varchar, yes. Salt. Security purposes. Also, I'm going to use varchar. What else? First name, last name, phone. This is username, not first name. This is username. Yeah. Here we have first name. Also, it's varchar. Last name. It's a varchar. Phone and photo. Phone and all of them, they are actually varchar. Phone, varchar, photo. So it's a varchar. Great, I'm done. Before I submit, the table or the entity name is user. User is the name. So here, I'm going to change this table word to user. User. After I change the user here, now I'm going to make update. It will ask me for consent. I'm going to say yes, update database. Here, loading, load, yes, done. Done. It has been updated. If I come back to my database here, refresh the tables, open the tables, and this is the user. Here it is. It is exactly what we have generated. ID, username, password, hash, salt, and so on. It's the same. Great, finished. I'm going to close. And I'm going to pass to the second customer. So come back on tables, right click, add new table. The same. We have ID and we have customer ID or cust ID. Sorry, cust ID. I'm going to say, I believe so, no? User ID, sorry. ID, user ID, favorite table, date last visit. So here, user ID. User ID, and it's an int. So it's the ID, no? So here, and then after, favorite table, varchar, means favorite location inside the restaurant, and then after, date last visit. Date last visit. Also, it's a varchar I'm going to use to avoid the issue of the syntax. Okay, the same thing. I'm going to change the name here. Table. I'm going to change it to customer. Customer. Then update. Update database. Yes, has been updated. I refresh my tables. Yes, it has been come. Customer, here it is. We have user and customer now. We have two entities. Third and last, the cook table. Yes. Okay. On the tables, right click, add a new table, ID, user ID, user ID. It's an int. Has a hat. Yes, has hat means if he's a chief or not. I'm gonna say bacha. Cuisine means a specialty. Cuisine. I'm gonna say it's a bacha also. Bacha. Chef school attended means did he pass through an exam or not, or by expertise? Chef cuisine attended, and I want to say it's bacha also. Bacha. Great. Anything else? Chef school attended, not cuisine. Chef school. I want to fix that. School, yes, good. It's here cook. The name of the table is cook, so I'm going to change this one to cook. Yes. Update. Update table. Yes, has been updated. It is saved. Come back to my table, refresh. Yes, the table 3 has appeared. Yes, we have all of them now. Great, I'm done. Task number 1 has been finished. I'm going to close. Yes, okay. Populate all entities with one record each. So, okay, I'm going to do insert. So, start with the user, right click, table data. ID, I'm going to say 1. Username, I'm going to say Oman123 or Oman21. Okay. Password hash, I'm going to say 12345679789. Okay. Do I do like that? Okay, I'm going to do it like this. Okay. With 0 included. Password hash 123. First name, I'm going to say Murad. Last name, I'm going to say Murad. I'm going to say Oman. Change. The phone, I'm going to say 7777777. Photo, I'm going to say 12 Oman. Any name, whatever. Or yes, let it be like that. No worries. So next line, yes, has been saved. I click next line only. There is no save here. I just click next line, then close. Finish. Next entity, customer, table data, ID is 1, user ID is 1. Favorite table, I'm gonna say 504, 514, or whatever. Date last visit, I'm gonna say today's date, 4/4/21. Next line, yes, has been saved. I'm gonna close. Next entity now. Third one, the cook table data. Yes. ID is 1. User ID is also it's 1. Has hat, I'm gonna say yes. Cuisine, I'm gonna say Omani. Omani. School, I'm gonna say yes also. Okay, great. Next line, yes, has been saved. Saved. Yes, I finished. Yes, I populated now each of them with one record. What we are going to do today, now, not today, actually, what I'm going to do in this practice here is to populate the views we are having in our front end interfaces with values using the single value binding mode. We'll come back to this work here, but in a future time, not now. This task number 2 now. We start with a static value, and later on we'll see how to use the tables for next, because later on we'll use the tables. But for now, let's start with the simple one, with the simple work. Good. So we are going to generate something like that. It's a label. We are going to generate a page in which we are going to put a label. label, and this label would have this text here, and inside of it we are going to specify a single variable in which we are going to specify the source, which is one value. So we are going to refer to a single value bindle method in order to populate the value. And here, this example, this particular example, I'm going to display the number of students attending in the class. How many students? How many students? The number. How many students? So there were X students attending today. The number. How much? How many? How many students have attended today? The number. We are going to specify from a data source. The data source is here in the code behind file. We are going to define it manually. So I'm gonna go the easy way. I'm gonna go the easy way. So let's do that. Let's do that. So first of all, I'm gonna design this view here, and later on we'll go to the code behind file to define this variable here, what we are calling std count. Std count is the variable we're going to create here. Okay, let's do it. So I'm gonna generate. I'm gonna insert, not generate. I'm gonna go here, gain space a little bit, and I'm gonna insert a label. So this label text, I'm gonna here refer to the label text. I'm gonna say there were let me see, there were, I'm gonna say X students and then day. Okay, dot. Good. What else? Any other text? Yes, I see that you are using. I see that you are using. I see that you are using. The request browser. Well, actually, the type of the browser. Let's type it here. What I'm gonna do now? I'm gonna type it differently. Now I come back here. So I'm not gonna type the text here. So I'm gonna make it different, because the property I typed here, it is bringing me a property inside the label. So I'm going to use it differently. So I'm going to delete the text property, and I write it here in between the open and the closing tag. Here, there were X students, a new line. I see that you are using Chrome or Firefox or Internet Edge or whatever. So here I'm going to specify the variable responsible for the browser, no more, no less. So here it's a user-defined, it's a predefined, sorry, it's a predefined method I'm going to call the browser only. That's it. Browser in C# it will display the browser name simply. So to do so, I would replace the X with the variable I'm going to define later on, which is this one, and this one there is nothing to be replaced. Why? Because he will recognize from the computer itself. He will initialize this value here. So this X will define it inside the code, and those less than greater than, it would be replaced by the browser. Actually, we are going to specify the browser from the pre-recognized actually list of methods. We have the browser method, so I'm going to specify simply here. I'm going to specify that I'm going to use here. I'm going to say So yeah, let's say browser.browser no more or less, and he will recognize that browser. That's it. In small or even small. So request dot browser. That's great. So that's it. It's enough here. And I will replace this x. I will replace this x also with a single value mode, so less than percentage hash, and I close it. In between here, I'm going to say the name of the variable I need. So std count, it's a user-defined variable. So nothing here. There is nothing. There is nothing called std count because we did not define yet. So here it does not have any value. Why? And it is errored so far. See, it is underlined with red because does not exist. See, the message appeared. Does not exist in the current context. Let's create it. I'm going to save this file first. And let's create this single variable. Here it's not underlined. Why? Because it is recognized. It is from the libraries. It is from the predefined, let's say, namespace. So I'm going to define this variable now as a single value binned component. So I'm going to define this variable where and the code behind file where inside the same load here because we have to define it here. But I'm going to use it as a public variable. I'm going to define it as a public variable. If you can remember, let's come to here. Yes, it is defined as a public variable. See here, static. It's a public variable. It's an int, no more, no less. Come back here in any empty place. Yes, double click before the page load. I'm going to define a public. Let's say int. It's an std count. We cannot have actually 10.5 students. They are only int. So std count, the same spelling, equals. Yeah, there is no equal, semicolon. That's it. So here, this std count. I'm going to save. Come back here. It's not underlined now. It's not underlined. There is no error. Khalas. The error has been solved. There is no error. I pass the mouse over. There is no message to appear. It's not error. It's correct now. It's not underlined. That's great. Now we continue. After we define this public variable here inside before this closing curly brace here, I'm going to give it a value. So the same std count, I'm going to give it a value. Let's say 10 or 100 or 20. How many students we are? We are 14. So 14. Let's say 14 students. So semicolon. Good. That's it. This is the source. This is the source. How to do now? To display. I'm going to just save first. I'm going to save. And I'm going to test. So to see the content of this label, right click in any empty place, view in browser. We have the menu, we have it already. And here, there were students. What is the X? What is the number of students? Nothing. Attendant error today. I see that you are using, it's not right in the name of the browser. Let's see what are the problems here. What are the missing things here? We have two questions less than. It did not recognize what is the browser I'm using, but it did not give any error. And here it is not displaying the value. It is not displaying the value. What's the problem? I'm going to save, come back here. What is the problem? There is no problem, but there is something actually missing, which is the this.bind. The this.bind actually. We are going to bind here this dot data bind. Yes. Semicolon. We have to bind actually all the single value. I'm not going to specify a list because we do not have a list here. We are having a single value. Since we are going to have a single value, so everything will be binned immediately. No need to specify something before the data bind. Immediately we run. Save. Come back here. In any empty place, right click, view in browser. There were 14 students. I see that you are using Chrome. He's saying Chrome, but whatever. It's not Chrome, but he's seen because the Chrome is actually the engine on top of which this browser is running. So it has been populated. 14, Chrome. From where they came, those are the components here. And how they run, because of the pendant. Any questions here, please?
No.
Okay, great. So here, just for, I'm gonna return to design view now. I'm gonna return to the design view. Yes, here. That's it. That's the main purpose. What I'm gonna bring your attention to is that what we see, this is not a menu. This is just a list here. But if we want to make it a menu, a list of options available horizontally displayed to us, we have to manipulate the CSS. So this list, it has an ID. Yes, absolutely. This is great. So I'm going to come back to the split view. The name here, actually, it is the bulleted list. It has an ID, and this ID I'm going to control. So I'm going to copy this ID name, copy, come back on the header part before the close of the head, before the closing head. I'm going to generate a style block. Yes. Close style. Great. In between here, I'm going to create a tag for this bulleted list one. What I copied. The one I copied here, I copied from here. Here it is. I paste. And I give it a limit, let's say a scope. Here we do the style we want, whatever the style we want. I'm going to say, for example, color. I'm going to say turquoise. Semicolon. Yeah. For example, I save and let me test, see if it has any effect. It doesn't have any effect. Why? Because it is hyperlink. Why? Because still it's underlined and we clicked it. I'm gonna hide those underlines and I do display my effects. So I come back to my block of style. So I'm gonna say here before of this color, I'm gonna say text decoration. Decoration. Here it is. Colon. None. I'm gonna say none. Yes, semicolon. So to hide the effect of the hyperlink. Save. Right click. View in browser. And still it is having the impact of being displayed as hyperlink. Whatever. I'll continue because I need to, what it is, I need to have the impact of, let's say, hide the impact of this hyperlink in order to have that color visible. I'm going to just hide it for your preview now only. Save first. View in browser. Yes, here it is without any impact. Okay, I come back here and I continue with the effect. I'm gonna, for example, just I'm interested only in just making it in just in online float. Say left. I'm gonna say left, Arabic or English, whatever, and yes, and the display actually I'm gonna change it to inline display. I'm gonna change it to inline. The issue later on, I'll tell you why it is not having a direct impact. Let me say first. So the float left, why? Because I need it to be in English, so left. Otherwise, if it's in Arabic, so I can write here right. It's in Arabic. Usually, actually, you might use here. You do not need to type everything. When I wrote float, it will give me the options. So I'm choosing from the options. Let me test. Yeah, it does not have any impact. Why? Because it is not specified perfectly for this object only, this ID here. So what I have to specify here is the hash. Say that this is ID. Yes, I'm gonna. I added the hash. Yes, let me view in browser now. Yes, here they are. The impact has started being visible. Let me come back and return it to be in display mode here, display mode. Turn it back to be hyperlink. Save. Let me visualize it again. Still, but we can see that the impact is still visible. If I click it, it is working very fine. So this way we can add effects using the CSS. So this way we can add effects using the CSS. So here we can make a good design. So this way we can make a good design. We can actually give a framework. We can add a frame. So saying border, I'm going to say the size is 2 pixels, 2px. It's a solid, or let's say dashed. So it's hyphens, dashed. You'll see. And I'm going to say it's in green. For example, semicolon, the color. Save. Yes, see the effect. I'm going to view. Yes, see the effect. I can give a radius to the borders. I can give a radius to the borders. So here we are not making a style, but I'm just bringing your attention that you have to manipulate very well. You have to manipulate very well this design here. The border, it will not be sharp like this. I'm going to make it with a radius. So I'm going to say border radius, border radius, border radius. Yes, here it is. I'm going to say 10px, 10px. Yes, for example, 10px. The angle is 10px. I'm going to say visualize, view in browser. See the border now, how it is. See the border, how it is. See the border, how it is. I'm going to change the border to be, it's enough. It's enough as a style. It's very enough here at this level. So I'll give you the record, and I need the outcome to be sent to me by 2 p.m. 2 p.m.